In the modern era, when we think of travel, there have been two companies that have pretty much managed to generate the highest recall in the consumer mindset: Airbnb and Uber. With just 10 years of existence in the market, both these companies have managed to generate about billion-dollar businesses and are growing rapidly despite their backlash last year with COVID. But just like any other company, Airbnb and Uber had their humble beginnings and eventually snowballed to become the monopoly that it is today. Which begs the question, what are those initial strategies with a shoestring budget that both companies did to innovate, and how did they get their first 1,000 customers? The answer to the question lies in three simple strategies: solving the chicken and egg problem, doing things that don't scale, staying low on competitor radars. Now, the initial struggle for both the companies was to solve the chicken and egg problem, and any misdirection and any misstep in this direction could have been catastrophic. But before we get to that, what is the chicken and egg problem? You see, companies like Airbnb and Uber are two-sided platforms. Uber's job is to connect people who need rides with people who have rides to offer. Similarly, Airbnb connects people who need rooms with homeowners. And so you see that both sides of the business are heavily dependent on each other, and one can't exist without the other. Brian Chesky, the co-founder of Airbnb, went on to say, as a small company, you can't afford to focus on both with the same amount of effort. You may need to prioritize one thing over the other. Now, coincidentally or uncoincidentally, both companies realized that the supply side of things was the larger problem to tackle, primarily because of the fact that strangers were feeling very uncomfortable in inviting other strangers to their homes or into their cars. So both company founders decided to tackle this problem first. Or in other words, they decided to fix the supply side of problems first and later went on to create a demand for that supply. Now, in hindsight, this seems like the obvious move and the right thing to do. But if you really look at it, you still had a set of problems when you were building for supply. There was no guarantee that consumers were going to use the product even though the supply was sorted. There were different kinds of investments that you had to make on the supply side of things. And overall, in general, you still had to form a roadmap on the supply side of things that took the company forward. Which leads us to strategy number 2, do things that won't scale and only scale things that work. Oftentimes, startups are always on the look for funding, primarily because it's readily available these days, especially if you have a good idea. But Airbnb and Uber were very, very cautious of how they wanted to use their money. And they did this by testing out things that didn't scale. Or in other words, they set out in doing things very manually and didn't automate anything to begin with.
Brian was admitted to Y Combinator in 2009, and his first meeting with Paul was confounding. Paul tends to stump people with deceptively simple questions.
And he asked us, where's your business? And I go, what do you mean? Like, where's your traction? I go, well, we don't have a lot of traction. He goes, well, people must be using it. I said, there's a few people in New York using it. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, so your users are in New York and you're still in Mountain View? I said, yeah. He said, what are you still doing here? And I go, what do you mean? He said, go to your users, get to know them, get your customers one by one. And I said, but that won't scale. For hugely millions of customers, we can't meet every customer. And he said, that's exactly why you should do it now. Because this is the only time you'll ever be small enough that you can meet all your customers, get to know them, and make something directly for them.
Similarly, they soon realized that their competitor at the time, which was Craigslist, were facing this problem where homeowners weren't clicking good pictures for other people to see and rent. And so there was this huge bounce off rate on Craigslist website. And so as a solution, the Airbnb founders hired photographers for $5,000 each. They followed them around, supervised each photo shoot, supervised each post-production edit. Now, if you look at what they did here, is this scalable? Is this feasible for a long-term basis? No. Similarly, unlike today with Uber, where you see car drivers driving their own cars on behalf of Uber, Uber invested a lot of money in actually getting brand new black sedans for their first set of drivers so that users can come experience the best quality of service and spread the word hopefully for them. Because hey, at the end of the day, first impressions are the best impressions. Now, was this a feasible thing to do in the long term? Could Uber invest in cars for every driver that they signed up with? No. And that's exactly why they did it in the initial phase. Because both companies were small enough to make personalized, handcrafted experiences for their customers. And this was a phase where they could go and literally talk to their users in person, understand the problems in the market, and hopefully redefine the product with this lens. Now think of it, this can never ever be done once you scale the business. Like going and talking to 10,000 people one-on-one personally is just not a feasible thing to do. And at the same time, any change that you want to make in your product is oftentimes going to disappoint at least a small chunk of users. But by doing things that didn't scale initially, both companies took the most giant creative leaps in this phase with the most less consequences. And with this strategy, they learned what worked, what didn't work, and they just scaled whatever worked. Now, the extremely special thing about Airbnb and Uber was not that they were not only smart about the supply side of things, but they were also extremely smart about the demand side of things. Now, Airbnb and Uber already had competitors in the market, and they knew that they couldn't beat them one-on-one. And so what Uber did was they did a small survey in the US, and they carefully curated a list of cities where the discrepancy between supply and demand of taxi services was minimum. And not only did they use these list of cities, but also figured out when to strike, when to launch, and what time to launch. And so with all this data and information, Uber finally launched during the holiday season, where people hung out the most, people were late night out partying, people were attending concerts, people were attending sporting events. And so during this time, the amount of people who needed cab rides was just too much. The demand was just too much that the existing competitors were not able to satisfy. Think of yourself in a situation where it's 2 in the morning, you need to get home, you're just not getting a cab because all cabs are already booked. And then you hear of this service that has a brand new black sedan, and they'll come and they'll pick you up, and the experience is just amazing. The odds are that you take that chance, right? Airbnb also followed a very similar strategy where they waited patiently for their time to strike, and they launched finally in Denver in 2008, where there was the National Democratic Convention happening, which is a very big event in the US politically. And during this time, basically all hotels were booked by politicians, and there was just no place to go in terms of hotel booking. And that was the time when Airbnb stepped up, ran advertising campaigns, and said, guys, we are a new service, we are here, and we know that you have no place to stay. We're here for you, and we'll solve this problem for you. This worked wonders for Airbnb, and they later used the same strategy to carve out cities where big events and big political rallies were happening, and they established their presence over there. Now, there are two very interesting things to note here. Notice that both companies didn't initially go after the entire market, but rather focused on acquiring a small subset of customers, marrying them with an already fleshed out, beautifully handcrafted product, which as a formula causes word of mouth and brings in the next wave of customers. The second thing to notice is how they didn't try and take any business away from their competitor brands, because they knew that if the competitors knew that these guys were onto something, then they would innovate and they would adapt and they would change their business model. And so they went about their business, carefully choosing areas of when to strike and how to strike. And by the time the competitors realized what was happening, eventually, these guys had already taken over the market. And so that's been my time, and if you got any genuine value out of the video, please hit that like button and share this video as much as possible. If you're new to the channel, this channel is a combination between business and marketing strategy breakdown videos and genuine feel-good cinematic videos. If that's something that appeals to you, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.